I'd like to open the St. Andrews Task Force meeting this evening. First on the agenda, we have reports. First up is the meeting with LCH and Maine Health. I'd like to say that a couple of us had a discussion with Lincoln County Health and Maine Health on Monday. I would like to say that it was an extremely positive meeting. What came out of that discussion was an agreement that the task force and Lincoln County Health are going to work together, and that the closing date for St. Andrews Hospital has been pushed back to October 1. Like I said, I considered it an extremely productive meeting. We met with Bill Karen, Jim Donovan, Peter Mundy, and Dr. Foray. Jim was there, as well as Stuart and myself. We've got some real good dialogue going. We're going to be having a few more meetings with them, and we're going to work together on some projects to make sure that we come out with the best possible health care for the region. And Stuart, what would you like to add to?
No, I just, really, it was a really productive meeting, a good meeting, and we're not going to slow down on our iVantage studies and, working with our legal counsel. That's going to keep moving forward, and we're not slowing them down one bit. But the fact that, we're able to sit at the same table now, and there's a lot of very positive reassurances from Lincoln County Health and Maine Health, so
Yeah, but they
we're
do, that's what they do.
we're looking for good things coming up. So
The release of the information was intended to be tomorrow at about noon. The discussion was the task force representatives that were at the meeting and the Lincoln County Healthcare and Maine Health leaders is that to agree to one condition is that this has to be released in an amount of time so that they can contact their employees and use their own organization. That didn't happen because we're obviously talking about Tuesday, not Wednesday. But that was the design, was to allow that information to be delayed a little bit. It wasn't to keep any secrets, it was more to allow Lincoln County Healthcare the opportunity to make their own announcement internally before it was public. I've heard that spill out through the employment, which they have a lot of employees, and I've also heard it come about the other way, so I think both parties have played a role in the information getting distributed a little bit early. So that wasn't the discussion on Monday, and I kind of want to apologize to Lincoln County Healthcare and Maine Health for that not happening, but we are talking about a release of sensitive information that was hard to bottle up.
yeah. Well, and say that, I take a little culpability in that. Sue Mello was in the room at the time, and it was understood that we wouldn't release anything till noon tomorrow. A Wiscasset reporter was in our meeting yesterday, last night, Selectmen's meeting.
Your Selectmen's meeting.
Selectmen's meeting. And I had said to her, something's coming. That's all I had to say. And that started the ball rolling, and next thing you know, it was out on Facebook. So I apologize too. So.
Now, one of the discussion topics is, and this is a reoccurring conversation, is that the organizational structure for Lincoln County Healthcare and Maine Health and the 4 towns and the task force are very, very different. Working in a public environment, working in a private environment, and the culture shock has been something that we've had to deal with. It is not the task force intention to work in a private atmosphere, but it led to a positive result in this instance. And now the task force is discussing how do we meet that in the middle. our private discussions, something we want to entertain. It obviously is getting us to some common ground, but the 4 members here would have all wanted to be in that meeting, and because of FOA law, there were only 2. And that's a discussion that we need to figure out in the short term, but it's not a bad problem to have. So that's my input on the meeting.
I would like to just insert one thing. I was not at the meeting because, again, we couldn't have more than 2 people there. But what I want to stress above all else is that all you people that are here right now need to know that your ownership in this is huge. We do not get to the point of them moving this to October without your involvement, without your efforts, without all the work that you have done, and the other folks that aren't here tonight. Your endless hours of work and dedication is what has turned this in our favor. It's not the 4 of us and Jim. I mean, not that we haven't had something to do with it too, but you people, what you have done is why we are sitting here tonight with more time than we had. And you should all congratulate yourselves for that.
Moving forward, I would say let's keep this decision in context and be proud that it's a positive step forward, humble in the fact that this is at this point in time a concession by both parties. So we need to be humble and a little bit grounded as we move forward. So. That's something I stress to public employees that work for the town of Boothbay during hiring and during performance reviews. Public employees are confident and humble and professional at all times. I think we stay in that role right now, similar to our town employees.
We've come a long way in the last couple of months, and I look forward to sitting down at the table some more with Lincoln County Health as we work through all of this. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen overnight, but
we've got a few more nights.
we do have a few more nights, and I'm encouraged with the conversations that we've been having with them, and we'll keep them on.
Is there
Mary Ellen?
can you add any more detail to the character of the topics, the themes that are open for discussions?
Well, I think the first thing that we ought to put is that their statement is the closing has been moved to October. I mean, so their premise is not changed dramatically.
Right.
But they were very open with us as far as, we didn't talk about specifics on Monday, but we did talk about, more of the big picture and moving forward, that they wanted to work with us on those different issues. So at least that's a willingness to work.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Was your legal counsel there at the meeting?
No,
No.
there's not, Margaret.
No.
From
But
our
they're-
side, it was Jim, myself, and Stuart.
Was their legal counsel there?
No,
No.
there's not.
Any of
Is
the
there
members
gonna
of their board?
The ones that were
Peter
at the
Mundy.
meeting with us was Pete Mundy, Jim Donovan, Bill Karen, and Dr. Foray.
Foray being the only board member, I guess.
Oh, Pete Mundy's on the
Pete
board.
Mundy's-
Oh, he is, that's right, he's chairman of the board. Sorry.
Yes.
Has the document that the task force lawyers been presented to Lincoln County as of yet?
Yes, it has.
Okay, and I just want to comment, I think it's incredibly concise, to the point document, and that anybody reading it, I don't care whether you're a judge or just a layperson, it is incredibly well written, well referenced, and I think it's going to go an awful long way to saving hospitals.
Certainly hope so.
Anyone else? Dan?
This, I think, you guys have done a great job, and I'm grateful for that. It gives us time. But only thing we bought is a stay of execution. And it gives them time to. And if they keep taking stuff out of St. Andrew's Hospital and moving it to Miles, like all the records, and I've got a horror story to tell you about, Shirley making an appointment to see one of the doctors at the Family Care Center, which goes through Miles.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. The reason it didn't happen is because the doctor was having a day off. And, their system doesn't work. And, if...
We are gonna continue to fight.
And by the time October rolls around, there'll be nothing left except the shell of the building.
Well, I'd like to look at this as a positive, Dan. I realize there are ways that we can look at it from both sides, but they could have said no and stuck to their April 1 deadline, which would have given us absolutely no time to sit at the table and
Yeah.
talk with them.
They did that one.
But
They were gracious enough
Right.
to extend the deadline to October 1st to give us all a chance to work with them on this.
and
I am hoping that much more positive comes out of this, because for them to extend the deadline, that was a big step for them.
It's a big
And-
win for us today, folks.
yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad for that. But the only thing that brought them to the table was the position paper.
No,
Pure-
no, I don't
pure
agree
and
with
simple.
you. You guys also brought them to the table.
Well, whatever.
The fact
You know.
that this town, these towns are so
Yeah.
clearly behind this also brought them to the table. The position paper certainly helped, but we wouldn't have had the position paper without you people.
Anyway,
position
that's
paper-
what did it.
The position paper was released between one interaction with Lincoln County
Right.
Healthcare and the next. So I don't think it was the only factor that led to their discussion.
Well, I think it was a big factor.
Absolutely,
I think it was just.
no question.
Kind of it was the community involvement and the community staying so
Oh, sure.
active in this. And,
Yeah,
we went from, over 300 at that first meeting down at the school to the second meeting, having through over 300
without the summer people.
without the summer people. And I think that that show of so much support down here, I think they had to address it.
Shirley?
I appreciate everything you said because I felt the same way. However, I think the watchword is beware. Because,
As my favorite president said, trust but verify.
no, I'm sorry, but it is a matter of trust. And, they haven't, I don't see that.
The public has lost a lot of trust in Lincoln County Health, and they know that. Trust me, they know that. They're gonna do what they can to win back the trust. I feel very strongly about that.
That's good.
Dr. Oliphant and then Jane.
So there has been no agreement to slow down the process of entwining St. Andrews with Miles. Moving moving the records, moving the operations, combining the operations, so that it will be extremely difficult to unentwine them and kind of be a force moving in the direction of eventual closure.
There is no agreement about that at this
Okay.
time.
Wouldn't that be something our lawyer would handle? Could handle, should handle?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, well, like I said, that meeting on Monday, yesterday, we talked more of the big picture stuff, and obviously the biggest picture stuff was moving the date, and then the other discussions were, what are we going to be able to talk about in the future, and they wanted to start, negotiations and talking as soon as possible, and we were looking at like 2 weeks out even, just to start regular meetings with them to discuss and go over this stuff and see where we could, so
So just
those,
moving the date, not slowing or stopping the process.
well, we don't, to be honest with you, we don't know what that means, moving, as far as those processes go. But we will find out.
Very
And
important.
the moving of equipment,
Taking stuff.
the decisions that have been made to move equipment and merging of boards, and a lot of these topics are covered in the position paper. There was no budging at all on the position paper. There was a discussion that they've had some internal discussions of the position paper. They weren't ready to discuss it in full, and the task force didn't move off their position at all. So that is covered in that 16 pages.
Yeah, I'm talking more about operational issues than picking up the equipment and carrying it to Damascus. The sort of thing where once a particular process is concentrated in Damascus, it will be more difficult to move it back down to Booth Bay.
Yeah, we're not concerned with how difficult it is for them to move it back. That's an issue that we will cross as we move forward. I think at this point, folks, from my perspective, you gotta continue to trust that we're gonna do everything we can to keep this thing moving forward. That, we've got a big win today. This is a big win, and we've got to keep, a positive attitude about that. Yes, I mean, again, they're still talking about closing this in October. So obviously, we haven't won the war yet. We won a battle. The war continues, and we will continue to fight. And we're going to continue to move this thing forward, and it's going to take time.
Will they schedule the meeting so that all of you can be there? I mean, you weren't there because you had a work issue and you weren't there?
Well, I was there partly because of the work issue, but right now, Lincoln County Health and Maine Health will not meet in public. They won't do that. They will meet privately. Well, if we are going to meet privately, we can't have more than 2 people there.
Because
Because
we're a basically a quasi-municipal board brought
I got
together
you.
by interlocal agreement.
So if all
if
of
3
you
of
are
us
there,
show
it has to
up,
be
It
public.
has to be public. And we're more than willing to do that, but they're
Yeah.
not. So this is how we can work around it.
I
But
understand.
it's very unsatisfactory
Yeah.
for all of us, the 2 that go and the 2 that don't. Very
So you're
unsatisfactory
going
for
to
the 2
trade
that
off, or
don't.
how are you going to work it?
we don't know yet.
We're still trying to solve that problem.
You know something, if they're trying, and this is positive, because I really think this is wonderful, we got the delay, more than wonderful. However, if Lincoln County Health is said in the meeting with you folks that they knew that the community was very much against them and they wanted to change that, they'll never change it if they keep everything private. Don't you think?
But we have no control over that.
Yeah. It'll never change.
I can tell you
That's
the
okay.
two-
Yes, we just have to keep working. That's
The
all.
2 representative members made that point at the private meeting, that
Right.
we're not getting anywhere as long as these discussions maintain private. So I think some time needs to be had, some discussion, some trust.
And at one point, they did offer, well, they could have 2 meetings. 1 meeting with 2 of us, and then another meeting with 2. Which, I mean,
Better than nothing.
exactly. So, I think we're charged with trying to figure out how to make it, and to be honest, it would be nice to have all 4 of us instead of 2 and
Yeah,
2.
it would. Yeah, it would.
So I think we're charged with that task right away to see how we can make that happen.
Great.
Jane, then Mike.
We just gave them this legal thing, breach of trust, and the word trust has been thrown around tonight a lot. And I guess what I want to hear from you is, how are you going to trust? It's going to start with you. The reason that the community has been behind this, and the reason that these people have been here every week, and the reason that they're listening to us now is because we trust each other. This is a hard-working family you got going here.
We know that.
I know that, and you say that, and I know you mean that. But I'm just, how are you going to deal with trusting anything that comes from their mouth is the truth, or even close to the truth? And I know we have to start there. I know probably we have to say, okay, we're just going to trust.
Actions.
How do you do that?
Actions.
Excuse me?
actions,
what they do.
what they do.
I mean, you know, Jane, it really boils down to that. I mean, these are the people we need to negotiate. I can't go find somebody else to negotiate with. These are the people we have to negotiate with. And have they burned a lot of bridges? Oh, yes, and we know that, but they're at least now making overtures that they want to try to do better. And you're right. When will we trust them? When this thing is all said and done, and St. Andrews is staying open. I'll trust them.
With Mr. Donovan as the CEO and with Mr.
Those are issues, again, let's not try to get into the final micromanaging of this thing.
Okay.
You know, we can't get in the boat before we've built the hull. You know, there's no point in trying to row that boat because we're just gonna sink. You know, we've got to start somewhere, and that's what we're doing.
Okay. Well, I trust you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know how you're gonna do it. I trust you.
Mike?
More or less in the interest of moving along for tonight, I suggest, actually, 3 thoughts, and Smith, you brought up the third one. They're the folks we're dealing with. We don't have to, I mean, they are who they are. We know who they are. But in the coming weeks, when you consider what's going to happen, the iAdvantage report is due 1/1. Let's not take their feet away from the fire. Let's keep them at, you know.
Oh, full speed ahead.
Full speed ahead. And it's kind of interesting because even Karen in his interview mentioned that they failed to do community outreach. They failed to do full research. All the information that I'm getting from board members who will talk to me is that all the information they got was from Maine Health and Lincoln County. They didn't go elsewhere, and now they will have information from elsewhere, and their receptivity will be our judge. But that hasn't happened yet. It'll happen once they get that report. The other thing we have to bear in mind, and I think, Nancy, this addresses your concern, and perhaps others' concerns about what's being taken away from St. Andrews. The position paper deals with the history of what went on in quite some detail, and it deals with stuff moving across the river there.
I'm not interested in equipment so much, because you can always pick it up and bring
Well,
it back.
it mentions equipment as well as administrative function, but it also ends with the specter of a constructive trust. And that is a real big deal, and it's not a light mention of it. That essentially takes St. Andrews away because of such things. I suspect that Lincoln County Health is wiser than to continue to do what's described in that white paper in the form of removing things from St. Andrews. I suggest that they're smarter than that. So therefore, tonight we've just bought another 6 months. Let's move on.
Mike, to address part of your concern, keeping the Advantage people's feet to the fire and getting our report, we were asked, if we give you this extra time, are you going to slow down your process and string this out? Our answer was no, that serves no one.
Good job.
We are not going to slow down. We are going to keep doing what we're going to be doing. Lincoln County Health is going to do what they need to do, but at least now we're sitting down at the table, we're discussing these issues, and we can work something out. And the extra 6 months was a big step for them, and I do applaud them for giving us
Amen.
the 6 months. June.
I think that our towns have chosen these people to lead us, and they have confidence in them. We have confidence in them, and we have confidence in each other. And to continue, we all know that we can't give up on the pressure, and things have to, and I think we should take the national admonition and lean forward and go forward from this point.
So we shall.
Mr. Teal.
I'm not sure this is appropriate, but now that we have extra time, you know, it's probably time for the task force to be an entity of whether they form their own 501c3 or they use a 501c3 that's already set up like a hospital auxiliary or something like that. But I think if looking at this from the outside, if this gets to a point it becomes litigious at all, it's gonna be very difficult as a task force for us to proceed, as an entity. And there is extra time at this point. And if there is an entity that that the task force needs to form, it should be done now. I'm sure the lawyers are basically recommending in some fashion that direction also.
Jim?
How do I get from here to there? I agree. That's a good place to start. Is that there was recent criticism of the task force and how it should be structured. I debated future construction of the task force. I actually think fits that criticism pretty well. The task force had a task, whether it was ambiguous or not. It was a task. Investigate, come up with some actionable items, and then I think eventually the task force needs to think, how do we hand this back to the municipal leaders who created the task force to move forward? And then how do we use the tools that we created, the position paper, the iVantage study, as tools to equip them? And then how do we use, this is a tool too, the people, and how do we put them in the right vehicles to move forward? And that may be putting this in a 501c3, and give them all those tools, and put these guys back in their ordinary roles.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, that what was done was wrong, because obviously when the task force was organized in the beginning, there weren't any answers. I mean, so you don't go and spend a lot of money and try and figure this out before you get to a point. But now you're at a point where there's a lot of positive movement going forward. But there's also a lot of questions that have been brought up too about future operation and who's going to be, this trust issue and everything else, and who's going to be the eventual CEO and all of that stuff. We are a litigious society, and, if it gets to that point, we can't bind all these towns into this whatever happens. And I just think that the group itself, and I believe there's enough money behind this at this point, and there'll be a lot more money to come if, the money likes winners, when money will be behind somebody that's going forward. And I believe that we just, now we have some extra time to figure out if this is this direction to go in.
That was going to be my other comment on what you stated. I don't think we have time. I think now we have some time. Before we had no time.
No time.
Now we have
Right.
some time.
Some time, right.
And we would like a lot of time.
But if it makes you feel better, we've already started talking about that.
Okay, all right. I'm just.
We're a pretty clever group up here.
There's a lot of independent brainstorming that comes from this group, and then they get to decide what they want to talk about in the public meeting, whether it's leading. But that's not something outside of the frame that's been discussed independently. Is where does the task force go from that? What is task complete? I think that's the question for the task force. What is task complete? Is it fully functioning hospital, or is it equipping the towns and another vehicle to work on that? I don't know the answer.
Well, our CAS started out to save the hospital, the critical access. Our CAS won't be complete until it's done.
Right.
That's
So we gotta
the
figure out how
CAS.
to get there.
No,
Right.
you're all pretty smart, figure it out.
We're trying. We're trying.
We'll just work, you figure it out.
But I've had talk, I've gone back and forth with Mr. Hamlin, Booth Bay Harbor Selectman, about that exact thing about creating a fire. And in the beginning, my arguments were, no, we shouldn't, because we don't have the time to do it.
Right.
I still don't think we have much time, but I think the time we did get might afford us a little bit of it to form that 501c3.
Well, I think that it's possible, because it's very possible with the help of representative and with we may be able to get things through faster than normal change.
Right.
I practiced accounting for a long time, and I understand the processes, but I believe that there are ways to get through that mirage.
I think it's important, though, that we keep moving forward. Like Jenny said, you just keep working. We've been doing all of these things. We put together the report, we got the position paper, and each time it feels like we're just thinking up things to do, and then we do it, and we get it done, we get it paid for, we raise the money to pay for it. And I don't think we should be sidetracked by this extra 6 months. I think that they can decide to keep the hospital open before October 1st, and we should just keep working towards that goal.
And they
Yes.
can also decide to close it before October 1st too.
Exactly.
And that to me would be a problem. That they seem to forget that the community is people, and the people are there to be helped. The people are not looking for a hand up in the hospital, they're looking for help. And the Lincoln County Healthcare is threatening to take that away. And that's something that we can't afford.
Well, I will say that they said they wouldn't close it before that date anyway, so, I mean, I'm fairly confident that that's a date that won't be moved up any, I mean.
And I think our collective instincts have led us in a good direction. I mean, we are, like Smith said, at a great time right now. I mean, this is a great victory, and I think sitting down at the table with Lincoln County Healthcare is a good step forward too. I feel that working with them is, what iVantage has told us to do, is what our lawyer has told us is the path to take. And so I think we just need to trust that we're still moving forward in the right direction. And if we're not, we'll figure it out as we're going along. But
I think we should keep, like you said, Val, keep the same momentum in our minds.
Amen,
That, hey,
amen.
April 1st, we may be
Nothing's changed, we're moving
closing.
forward.
The hospital may be closing. Just keep that in your head, so we have extra time. We can't stop with anything.
Well, we told them that, we're not gonna tell our consultants at iVantage anything different. We want that report when they said they could get it to us, and, we're still plugging ahead, exactly, so.
Look
we're
at
not-
that moral victory too, is that you've got your position paper that says that privacy and governance has been a fault, and now you've created a public governance that has proven you can conduct business publicly, take criticism, learn from it, and still conduct business. So I mean, that's a moral victory outside of a new date too.
Yep.
And the other thing from everything that's been said here is we can't let October lull us into security, because everything I have heard says that town meeting is critical because that's when BRAS will be funded. And that's May.
Right.
And
March,
not to
the case should
mention,
be.
we'll start the public budgeting process for fiscal year 2014 in a month.
Southport already is, yeah.
Well, I mean, we are, we're just not doing the public
Because
aspect.
we meet in March, not May.
Oh, that's right, you guys be
Yeah.
early.
All right.
Next on the agenda, the Community Hospital Work Group. Bruce. Patty.
Well, she popped right up, didn't she?
Okay, our group has been, in the spirit of momentum, moving on. We have been working and we're going to continue to work. We have visited with 3 hospitals, actually the executive teams, the CEOs, CFOs, chief operating officers, and HR people, from 3 hospitals in the last week: Holton Regional, Penobscot Valley and Lincoln, and Reddington, Fairview, and Skowhegan. And I just wanted to report briefly on what we've uncovered, some pretty interesting best practices that have helped these critical access hospitals remain viable in the face of the same pattern that we're seeing here, which is declining ER and inpatient utilization. That's a kind of a statewide problem that everybody's facing. And I'll tell you in a minute some of the things they've been doing about it. these three hospitals, the ones we visited so far, have chosen not to be in a larger health system. They're all independent, and, but they do share some services with other hospitals. And they also, interestingly enough, all have their own ambulance services. So that was just kind of something we noted. So what did they do? What have they done collectively to kind of deal with the same problems that we're faced with? Number one, they've increased their outpatient services. They've increased their physicians, the number of physicians they have. They've increased physician coverage, both family care, pediatrics, general, and specialties. And brought back specialists like urologists and oncologists to their areas on a part-time basis. And one way they've done that, that they recommend for us, and we don't know yet whether we can qualify, is to become a rural health center. It's another Medicare designation. There are other critical access hospitals that are rural health centers combined. And they claim that it's the best reimbursement model. It's actually even better than just being a critical access hospital. And as Tom Mokler, the CEO at Holton, said, if you're going to get into the physician's business, the rural health centers are the way to go. You need very strong family care practices, and then you add to them pediatrics or geriatrics or internal medicine. But it starts with a strong basis of family care centers. And then, as I mentioned, the other thing they're doing is they all provide very regularly scheduled specialty clinics for conditions that people have in their region. So diabetes and urology. They have a dermatologist who comes up from New York every weekend and serves patients on Saturdays and Sundays. What an interesting concept. And these are all doctors who are perfectly willing to come and travel, you know, up to Bolton or Lincoln or wherever. And yes, they get paid for it, but it both serves the mission, which is to serve the community and make people not have to go, you know, drive a long way to get services, and it brings other services like labs and other things that help kind of bring the mix up. The other thing we talked about that we were pretty intrigued with is the idea of offering wellness services to the people in the community. So for example, in one area they're doing, now they're doing this with employees, but the actual idea is to start practicing with themselves as employees and then roll it out to the population at large. Wellness program where they have a nurse who comes twice a year, meets with each person twice a year in the community, and the nurse does a kind of wellness check and makes suggestions for things you should do, like lose weight and get mammograms, etc. And you actually get incentives to do the right thing. And the result is that their at-risk levels are going down, and people are getting healthier, and they're actually happy to, you know, one of the guys said, it's very odd, if I go to the doctor and he tells me to lose 25 pounds, I don't do it. But I meet with this nurse who comes all the way up from Portland, and she sits with me, and she tells me to lose 25 pounds, and I do it, and I get $100. And it's not so much the $100, but it's that, you know, it's kind of the whole program. And then these people also do case management. So I think that's something we should be thinking about, and they suggested with our Y in particular that, you know, having a partnership with the Y and doing something more around wellness might make a lot of sense.
Amen.
Another thing they've done, all three of them, is they provide more surgeries. So surgery's money making, and they offer surgery, both regular and orthopedic surgery, to increase the utilization of their facility. And one of them is providing local services for veterans. They got a special ability to become a veterans clinic, and in their case, once a week. In our case, it might be more like once a month. They can service veterans, and they get reimbursed for that. So those are all, you know, again, those are three hospitals. We're going to be seeing another 3 or 4 in the next week. So we'll get more stuff to report back. And they're all very happy to talk to us and give us their advice. So this is, and you know, they said, please come back with questions. The one gotcha we discovered was there's one caveat that might be at the root of why Lincoln County chose to give up St. Andrew's Critical Access Hospital designation. It appears that it may not be possible to be an accountable care organization and a critical access hospital. That those two may be mutually exclusive from the standpoint of Medicare reimbursement. So that's something we need to do some more research on, because Lincoln County Healthcare and Maine Health have become an accountable care organization. And so we need to find out, something you guys might want to bring up in one of your meetings. So that's our
I have
report.
some questions.
Thank you so much. Outstanding.
Oh, Valerie?
Patty, what were the 3 hospitals that you went to? Holton, Penn Bay, and
No, no.
Sorry?
sorry, what were the 3 hospitals?
Oh, Holton Regional, Penobscot Valley Hospital in Lincoln, and Reddington, Fairview, and Scotties. They're all quite a bit bigger than we are, so we're, in the group we're seeing next week, we're just going to see some quite small ones.
And all of these ones offer 24/7 emergency
Yes, they do.
services.
They're all critical access hospitals, so they have 25 beds, inpatient beds, 24/7 ER.
Thank you.
Reddington, Fairview.
Reddington.
Chuck? Bruce?
Just in case anybody asks, all of this information is being fed into the iVantage people as well. So
God bless you.
That's great. I think they know all this stuff already.
they do, but we're adding our.
We're educating them.
Information's good.
Next under reports, data analysis group. Mike, anything new this week?
No, we're all set.
Okay, thank you. Volunteer coordinator, Peggy.
First, I tried to be Peggy last meeting. And I'd like everybody to tell Peggy how horrible that turned out.
He doesn't dance as well as you do.
He doesn't dance? Well, a lot of people did tell me that you tried, Joe. I appreciate that, thank you very much.
You did do the unveiling very well.
I'm going to defer all of the information about our potluck last Friday to the fundraising group, but I really think we all owe everybody who worked, and I think I got everybody in this week's update, a big round of applause. And just kind of on that note, some of the things as we've been talking about what's left St. Andrews in terms of equipment. In the corner is the tree from the Festival of Trees that was put together by all of the nurses at the hospital. And I thought we needed to have it in this room, along with the picture of all the nurses came with it. Both my mother-in-law and my father-in-law have been cared lovingly by all of the women in this picture. So it's very, very special to me that we don't lose the people that we have at this hospital. Equipment we can maybe buy back because we can raise all kinds of money, Jeff, I know that. But the people are really who we're fighting for and with. And it was wonderful to walk in and see that tree. So I hope that we can leave it here along with their pictures and just, I think Mike said early on, anytime you walk into the hospital or St. Andrews Village, just please thank them. Who knows what's going to happen now since the date has been moved to October. They were told they were not going to have jobs as of April, so people have probably been making plans or trying to figure out what's next. They need our support as much as we need each other. So wherever that is, please offer them an extra prayer. Idea of the week. Idea of the week. You will find bumper stickers, again, thanks to Tom Hayden. Please use them on your trees. Everybody's been cutting out the little foam things, and that's good. But the bumper stickers are also weatherproof. You don't have to take the backs off of them. Just get a handful and get some thumbtacks and attach those bumper stickers to your trees if you don't want them on the car. Or put them on your car too. Put them on your mailbox. Put them on your door. You know, that's the idea of the week.
Put them on your forehead.
I would also like to report about the Second Opinion Fund. and I'm going to check its total now every Friday. As of December the 1st, the total was $13,742.39. This is the fund at the first we set up to fund just the consultants. We need $35,000, and I'm saying we need it by Christmas to show now that the deadline makes no difference. We need to raise the money now, and we can do it by Christmas. Tell all of your friends, walk into the first, drop off a check, and as soon as we hit 35, I'll be a screaming meanie down the street. Yes. Online petitions, you might note that the petitions have kind of gone away. All of the paper petitions are now in the hands of my favorite, newest typist. Dorothy Hurt has agreed to put all of the petitions into a database so that we can sort them, and we will know numbers of people. And she says, well, I don't know, I'm going to be gone next week. So, hey, we've got some time. So hopefully maybe by the end of the year we'll know how many people's names they have on petitions. But we also were frantically trying to figure out how to get a hold of all of our summer people. And maybe we don't have to be so frantic about that now, but that's something we can decide over the next few weeks. Also, the weekly update, hard copies. We now have locations at the library and Mama D's. If you know of other places that people sit and read things and would like to take some copies, just let me know how many you need, and every Tuesday night you can pick them up and drop them off. And then let's see what else is there. Nope, I just want to thank Dorothy Hurt again and again and again and again. This morning I had a very interesting reading, and it made me think of all of you and this wonderful force that we have formed when we didn't know each other even a month ago. We just kind of knew faces, but now we can call each other by name. And this morning what I read was that you can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving. So thank you all for your time. It's that time of year where we wait for Christmas or we wait for the new year. We're going to wait for the iVantage report because that's what's next and will give us real direction. But just remember, we were told when we started that that April 1st deadline was written in stone. Nothing's written in stone. It's all good. We're on our path. Thank you all.
You do a much better job of being technical.
He does a good job of being Jim, though.
Next under reports, Blueberry Region Ambulance Service Work Group. Anything new to report, Scott?
Just next week, we're meeting with Lincoln County Healthcare again on a regular monthly basis, and so I'll probably have more to report after the meeting then. But we're obviously going to leave with some of the news that we've heard today, so that kind of takes some pressure off our last quarter budget.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Lincoln County Regional Planning, Mary Ellen.
I just want to say that I think it's the work that Bruce and Patty and the other folks are doing, the interviews you've done before, that are going to, I think, be another strong piece as you're going to go forward. You had the lawyer's perspective now, but I think the energy that's going to keep Lincoln County Healthcare at the table is going to be the work that you and others are doing, because we're going to be all smarter about healthcare in a little while, but I mean, it's also very important that we solve this together. I do, obviously, I'll just wear one small hat today, which is about the economic impact of a hospital closing. We've just looked at one piece, as you know, it's a sort of a big ball of twine that's interconnected, and we've just looked at one piece right now. We are still going to follow up with a survey of realtors, but that's kind of, I'm still working on draft questions for that. So we did sit down with Lincoln County Healthcare in September, and they provided the number of positions that they think will be lost, a maximum number of positions that will be lost, and their wages and where they live. And again, is a spot in time. Economists like to work in black and white, and so this is like a picture as opposed to a video, really, of what's going on here. So what this gets put into is professional grade software called InPlan, and it uses economic data from Lincoln County to figure out what the ultimate impact will be of these losses of 29 jobs, and if there's going to be any other loss. Professor Todd Gaben, I'll give this to you folks, and I'll make it available to Lincoln County Healthcare as well. So they figured that with a loss of 29 positions at the wages that we had received, it will be a direct loss of $1 million plus in income. With a multiplier effect, that means its impact on the community for retail and other things, of an additional 9 jobs for another almost $300,000 of loss, for a total impact of $1.342 million from these positions. So this means really that these jobs are lost from Lincoln County. So they're not held in St. Andrews, they're not shifted to Miles, they're shifted outside the county. Now, I know, and I don't need to have Cindy say this, but they are trying to keep that number lower than 29, but we don't know what that's gonna happen, but you have to start somewhere. So this is, I could tell you it's the maximum, but we don't fully know that. And again, if we're able to work together, maybe it will be much less than this. I'm certainly thinking we're going to have additional healthcare services, but it's unknown right now. So that's why, even though this is a shot in time, I'm hoping it's not the final statement, but that's sort of the scale of what we're looking at. So this is based on the exact salaries of RNs and CNAs and others that they're really trying to find positions for. So I'll get copies to you folks for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
It's something that we've learned since 2007, 8, that what we knew about economic development and impact studies wasn't extremely useful. We learned that we didn't know anything because that world has been turned upside down. And now people like Mary Ellen and all of the professionals that work very hard in economic development and then figuring out the impacts of these types of things do really hard work. And I'm saying that we have some new normals when it comes to trying to figure out impacts. And I think one of the things that Maine has learned specifically in my very brief time in working with local governments is that the value of microeconomies in small regions that you may not be able to put in categories. I saw that firsthand in my previous town. Impacts to mills led to impacts to people that cut trees, which led to people that sell chainsaws, which led to, and wow. And the only way you get to measure those are in extreme examples. And you know, is this an extreme example? I don't know. But can we measure all those things is one of those things that we keep coming back to. Is the answer is no. You can try.
We may not be able to measure everything, but this is very critical to these communities in the county. To lose significant number of well-paying jobs year-round in this community is a big blow. And I'm hoping it will be less than that. I'm hoping they'll be translated into more outpatient services. But in my mind also, I'm concerned about the ultimate multiplier effect on Miles. We're in the middle of a lot of transition in healthcare, and what had been a growth sector in Maine, more so than other states, and in Lincoln County, is it a growth sector now? Well, hopefully it will be in this peninsula. We can keep our It's a very sobering moment to realize how this peninsula is really dependent on seasonal tourism, on second homes. You really want the year-round employment, and this has been a sector, and I'm hoping we don't really lose it.
I'm a new employee, somebody that has moved to the Booth Bay region for a job. So where do I shop? I shop in Hannaford. Where do I get my gas? I get my gas at a couple of different places, but those are the things that we're trying to, that's when you're saying economic impact. So you're trying to measure is what does 29 or 50 jobs mean to this little micro economy, and then and I think we've learned in the last 4 to 5 years is the micro economies that really drive the macro economy, and there's just more learning to do.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Next under reports, legal work group.
I guess I kind of put this in two places. It's not really old business. It really is a report. Last meeting, we discussed the position paper and made it available to the public. It is now on the Town of Boothbay's website. So townofboothbay.org, which is that link can be shared relatively easily. So we want to funnel people that have the interest in the position paper to there, so that we don't have to make a tremendous amount of hard copies for people. But it is located there. We've distributed that position paper a lot electronically, have made it available to Lincoln County Healthcare and Maine Health, and is for discussion at a future date. The other thing, and this is why I put it under old business, but I kind of digress and say it's not really a report. This is the position paper with all of the references. Now, when you're reading the 16-page summary, there's footnotes that say refer here. This is my copy. I'm going to make another copy and put it out front at the Town of Boothbay town office for the people that prefer the paper version for public review. Obviously can't make thousands of copies of this, but for the purpose of making this available for everybody, we can make copies of this. So I would say to the other town offices, if we want to make a public folder for people to review, that's easy, plausible, and probably recommended. But I wanted to point out, with all the attachments, how big this really is.
Thank you, Jim. And lastly, under reports, financial and fundraising. You must have the financials, Jim, and Valerie, the fundraising?
Sure. Yes, well,
Tag, you're it.
Friday night, was I ready to sit down at 9 o'clock. That was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was great to see everybody come out. I think we had about 150 people
Awesome.
That came and attended the dinner. We had lots and lots of food. I told Pam she didn't need to worry because I was eating macaroni and cheese for quite a few days afterwards. The food was so good. The company was really nice. Peggy had a moment to speak about the task force and the issues that we are working on in the task force. And I'll let you want to talk about the grand total and where we made all the money?
Well, I guess we can. We had the food, which was fabulous. Thank you, everybody. I worried that there wasn't going to be enough, but there was plenty, and then I worried not enough people would come, but then they came. So anyway, we had the bake sale. We did the dinner. The Misfires, I have to thank them so much. They came and did a 50-50 raffle and donated their 50 to us. The winner of the 50-50 raffle, Corrine Nelson, also donated her winnings to us. Plus, the Misfires had a crafts fair 2 weeks before, and they again did a raffle, and they donated. It wasn't as much, but they donated what they made again to the task force. And April Plummer was the winner there, and she donated it to the task force. So, I mean, we were so lucky we have a grand total of a little over $2,100.
And
What?
we didn't sell all of our sweets. And they were all wrapped and all nice sitting up there on the back table. So Pam and
Mary Pierce,
Mary
Mary
Pierce
Conley,
Yep.
and
took the
Alice
sweets
Grant.
down in front of
Silver Lining.
Lining and sold another $150. And people were just donating money. They didn't even want to take the food. So
Right.
I mean,
We had to beg them to take the food because we were so cold. We couldn't wait to go home. But also, while I forget, anybody missing potholders? I'll give you one more week if you're missing any. Otherwise, I'm going to give them all to the fire company. They're all clean. I washed them.
Awesome.
That's about it. $2,100.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
Well done.
I'm missing aprons.
I know, yes. Everybody bring back Peggy's aprons. I did.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank you putting together the potluck dinner. That you weren't sure how it was going to work out, and it worked out wonderfully, so thank you.
It was
for putting
really
it
fun.
together.
That's what we call a fundraiser, and a friend-raiser. So-
Yes.
Yeah.
Good one.
We need to repeat it.
Not
Not right away, not right away.
Maybe.
But for Valentine's.
Springtime.
Jim.
So the St. Andrews Task Force account housed in the town of Booth Bay has raised to date, not including the Second Opinion Fund, $60,666.14.
Isn't it great?
Given the task force members the account status, which you can see is mostly credits at this point, not a lot of debits. Right now, we're working the final invoice to date with Kozak and Geyer. We'll have that for the selectmen to review in their warrant probably on the 10th, so in a week. So then I'll have a more realistic view of expense versus revenue. And now some of our large expenses are starting to come to date. So we'll get a better idea of how successful our fundraising is versus our expenditures. That being said, I mean, we have a pretty good idea with the Second Opinion Fund and everything that we've accumulated, that our revenues exceed our expenditures, but it's the secondary the secondary avenue of dispersing funds, when we should have said when the task is complete that those funds will go to the capital improvement fund of the ambulance service. I wouldn't expect that to be a huge cash cow based on the amount of money that we have raised right now. It is a positive, but it's not going to be tens of thousands. It will be hundreds or thousands. That's important for perspective, as in we're not done yet, so we still need to figure out if future expenditures come up, how do we pay for those? But $60,666.14 is pretty amazing in itself.
It is. Well done, folks.
Yeah.
And Jim, that $60,666, that's how much is in the bank right now?
That's
How much is in the fund right now?
That's how much has been received to date. Some expenditures are in that current account status. So the balance in there is $50,681.99
Okay.
with expenditures in the win.
Mhm. Okay. That includes the money from the summer.
No, that's through 12/4, I believe, Jim.
Right. I don't have.
It's today, isn't it?
No, it's through 11/29, I think.
I printed this up today, this afternoon, after the office closed.
The supper went to the second opinion.
That's what I was gonna say. So the supper's in the second opinion and fund account, which is probably the most appropriate place for it. I think
And in
it's-
answer to your question too, Margaret, I have received money since I got the total on December the 1st. So there is more money, and I'll give you that total again next Friday. But there still is a deposit to be made.
All right. We already handled the old business and the position paper. New business, recap the next meeting.
Mr. Hagan pointed out that recap is not an appropriate term. I should change that. Mr. Hagan's a very smart man. So the action items that we probably should work on are we need to coordinate with Lincoln County Health and Maine Health on that next meeting, which we have a date in the air right now. We need to figure out our representatives on that, as we anticipate it being private, but we can do that. We can do that as we get closer to that date. I think we have a lot of action items. I'm not sure I can summarize what we're working on, but because of the announcement of the change, I think we need to absorb that. We need to work on our next meeting date and see where that goes. I also have Julius in the works. I need to report to him everything that's happening. We've been playing miss a lot.
And I would add for Peggy, another thing is we need to raise $7,100 by next Tuesday. Because we have 3 weeks until Christmas.
We could just raise the rest of it by next week.
Or
That is
that
great.
too.
Jeff, did you hear me?
Patty?
Chuck. Yeah, one of the things that I think we need to figure out in the next actions, and Bruce or Peggy Pinkham, you may know the answer to this question actually. I know that for the Vantage report, I know they're doing their interviews, but there was also going to be some public participation meetings as input to the final report.
Right.
And now we're kind of having, first week into December, and everybody's getting very busy. And on the one hand, I think they want that as input for their final report. On the other hand, since we have a slight reprieve, I'm wondering if we should talk to them about possibly doing those in January. So I don't know what you guys want to do about that, but if we're going to do something in December and we need the town's cooperation, we would need to tell them when we're going to get together.
I think a good point is we also have interviews of people that we have lined up that
Right.
we didn't, they did 2 days of solid interviews and didn't get everybody in that wanted to participate, and probably we need comment from. The public participation parts of the contract, I've told Scott and Ralph, kind of placeholders, because we want that as part of what they factor into the cost. But it may very well be something that we decide at their discretion, what is more valuable, a large participation meeting, or working on the rest of those interviews, or we're working on that dialogue. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, my input would be if we could do them in January, assuming everybody hasn't gone to Florida. It might be better, because then we could have read what they come up with, and we could kind of say, okay, great, let's take that as the basis and let's co-design around that.
Yeah.
And maybe have Lincoln County.
We're going to be talking with iVantage again on Thursday.
How soon do you think that they'd have a date for when they'd want to do the public participation meetings?
Let's talk with them Thursday and see what their schedules are.
Because my thoughts, and you guys tell me if I'm off base on this, if they wanna have a public participation meeting, we just turn over one of our Tuesday night meetings to Scott and Ralph, and they can hold it on a Tuesday night when everybody's used to showing up.
We're public.
Pretty public,
I love it.
actually.
And now public participation meaning the interviews and then there was kind of, there was other discussion on ways we could use those 2 slots. And I really need to ask Ralph and Scott what they think is appropriate, and I think that Thursday meeting is also a good, we need that factored in. So I think that's something to work towards, is trying to figure out how that works for next meeting.
Okay.
All right.
An action item for the task force members is to think about that discussion that we had about what is the best future vehicle for the task force. So we
Yeah,
can
that's our
discuss
end
it.
meeting.
All right, public comment?
Question?
Yes.
Yes.
Regarding the October 1st date, is that legally binding?
No.
Okay, so they could renege.
Yeah.
They could. We don't think they will.
I think it would be politically.
It'd be suicide. It really would.
They're not politicians.
I have a line
Tom?
I'd like to, first of all, I think the report, which was read here last week and has been available for perusal, is absolutely fantastic. The entire thing, it seems to me, is like a huge club hanging over the heads of those who have perpetrated really crimes against people on this peninsula. The only thing about it that I think we need to do is to, I think we should start preparing for the possibility of success. Instead of focusing on the notion that, well, success would consist only of getting Lincoln County Healthcare to change their mind. Because in my opinion, that would leave them in charge. And that's what's wrong. And I think that's been wrong from the start. And so my only problem with the report is the very last paragraph on the last page of the report, which says that we hope they'll change their mind, and that's the desired outcome. Well, in my opinion, that is not the desired outcome. That would be one aspect of the desired outcome, which is, i.e., the hospital stays open. But in my opinion, a much more important thing is whose hospital is it anyway? And I want to make every effort I can to make clear that as long as we have the existing governance, then the hospital is owned, the 501c3, which is the hospital, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Lincoln County Healthcare, which is itself a wholly owned subsidiary of Maine Care. So nothing, in my opinion, really would be changed in the sense that they could do it again at any time. And I, for one, am strongly opposed to leaving things in that way.
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
My feeling about it, by the way, Patty reminds me, is that we have to get, as I said, we have to start preparing for the possibility of success. And that success, for example, instead of the hospital closing on October 1st, the ownership of the 501c3, which is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Maine Health, would revert to, quote, the peninsula, i.e. the merger of that was effected many years ago would be undone. The funds would be refunded, including the $4 million of endowment funds and any other funds that are appropriate should be returned with the hospital. But that means that we have to be ready at that point to take over responsibility for the hospital, which means we need a management group and a board of trustees that's ready to assume responsibility for executing management of the hospital as of that date. The way this is done in parliamentary systems is to have a shadow cabinet ready to go. And in my opinion, we need a shadow board of trustees and a shadow management team ready to step into responsibility for running St. Andrews at the time when the merger is reversed.
In other words, the legal force, or our legal people, have to act more quickly on that situation.
Well, I want to support all the good feeling that everybody has about the date being pushed out.
Yeah.
That's certainly a very positive thing.
Yes.
But I want to point out that aside from that, nothing has changed. And I think it's very important that we recognize that a significant change has to take place, which is the issue of governance of the...
Tom, you came in late tonight, so you weren't here at the start of the meeting and some of the discussion. We are very much aware that what they talked about is moving the closing to October 1st, that their premise still remains the same. We understand that very clearly, and we, I think, clearly as a group are going to continue to move this thing to where we want to get as a group, which is number one, St. Andrews remaining open. And yes, that will be a victory if we can get them to do that, whether we have changed the management situation or not. Those are things, again, is a little putting, the cart before the horse to start trying to solve those things until we've got the rest of the puzzle solved. Don't disagree with what you're saying at all. Certainly something we want to have in mind, but probably shouldn't be our lead premise with them, because it probably won't be very successful if we start with a salvo of, by the way, when we get rid of you.
No, but what we do shouldn't depend on your meetings with them.
I agree.
We could still put together a shadow board.
I agree. But one thing that I can't wait to hear is I'm sure there will be a rebuttal to our position paper. I can't wait to hear what that is, because the questions that are put in the opinion paper are pretty large in magnitude. To summarize in my words, some of the key points in the position paper is that the community has the same rights as minority stakeholders in this corporate organization. And there's a fiduciary responsibility between the organization and the minority stakeholders. And there's a fiduciary responsibility and personal liability with the trustees and the organization. Geez, I can't wait to hear what that answer is. And we have to assume that the answer will be a very good one.
Well, the question is, what's a good answer?
I think we need to remember this. Moving the date to October 1st was a big step for LCH. It was a huge concession for them. We need to stay positive about this, and we're looking at a lot of things. But what we don't want to do is push them away from the table. They're now sitting at the table with us and discussing these issues. We need to stay positive. We need to stay focused. And if we start looking at the wrong things at the wrong time, we're just going to push them away. And that's the last thing we need right now. We need them to talk to us and sit at the table. Otherwise, all of this is for nothing. And I don't want to see that.
And we have to trust that you have enough savvy to realize that you're at the table and you're meeting repeatedly, but it's all smoke and mirrors and you're not getting anywhere. You will sense that if it happens. And that's when we are behind you and we can
I will tell you
pick up
from
the
the first
tools
two
and go forward again.
From the first two conversations that I had with the folks that I met with, if I felt that it was all smoke and mirrors, I would have walked away.
Okay.
I am still willing to sit at the table and listen to what they have to say and keep working at this for all of us.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to getting to the table.
Has there ever been a suggestion, or do you think the suggestion will come that you, what is said here can't leave, you know, when you're there with them, nothing can leave this room?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
No, I just think.
We're not going to
that-
be backed into secrecy again.
No, I just think, you know, their thought was, in a private setting, there can be more give and take. That
Exactly.
after the meeting.
And I agree with that.
You espouse what
Yeah.
happened, kind of thing.
Yeah, they're not as comfortable with the public
Right.
setting as we all are.
Mhm.
And I can understand that because they're a private company. We're all used to dealing with public issues and being the public face, and
Mhm.
all of you have been great and joined us in that quest. They're not ready for that yet. Will they be at some point? Yes, I believe that they will be, and we'll all sit at the table in front of all of you and have these discussions. They're not quite there yet. Bruce?
Chuck, just one point I'd like to make, really in response to kind of the issues that Tom raises, is that I still have a bill going forward on community governance of a hospital, but there's a long, big, huge gap between sort of writing a bill that says what we like and having a hospital to run. So, you know, now that we've got this extra time, I think we can look at that and see whether or not it makes any sense to carry that forward or not. It would provide a way of open, transparent community governance of a hospital. Ralph Gabaro, who is one of the iVantage team, runs a hospital, did run a hospital that was governed that way. He's an expert in that. He can help us decide whether this is something we really need to look at, or whether it doesn't make sense in our situation. But until I hear that it doesn't make sense, I want to keep that process moving forward. So that, it's one potential answer. I mean, there are many other potential answers, I think, to where we get to keep the hospital open. Is it with another 501c3? Is it with community governance? Is it, you know, I don't know what the answer is, but it's one arrow in the quiver. We're going to keep it in there until we hear that it's not, you know, not going to be useful.
And
Right.
I have to say, I think you should keep moving forward with that proposed legislation,
Yeah.
because it's better to have a bookmark than a closed book,
Yeah.
and have it be the end of a chapter. And if that's there and is needed,
Yeah.
that would be a good thing. But if it's not needed, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yes.
We'd like to leave the arrow in the quiver, but,
Yeah.
you know, that's our
Yeah.
hope. But
Yeah.
we want to have the arrow in the quiver.
Yeah.
About reviewing other towns that's gone through this process, that's lost hospitals, to look at what happened to them and where they, junctioned up that with the legal system and focuses on, what they did and what they couldn't do and how far they could go legally, and may help you to join in. I'm saying in New England maybe, or something, of some review of these small towns that's faced these problems before, and maybe we could pick up some legal factors and so forth to help save some money.
There's a really good reference in the position paper of a similar, and in this case there's so many variables, but a similar situation in Massachusetts in which the Attorney General did step in an issue of governance, and we wouldn't put it in the position paper if it wasn't relevant. I have a public comment if we're still on public comment. This is a long public comment. I think the healthcare trustees are looking for an opportunity to get back into touch with the community. So keep an open mind and keep that door open for those people that are your representatives and part of the community to get back in there eventually. I think you want to keep that door open.
and through discussions that have led me to think that way, I've heard some people say, what a divisive topic in the Booth Bay region is this the task force and the healthcare organization, and I have to disagree. That I don't think it's a divisive topic. Certainly there are people that take sides, and certainly those sides are very different. But I don't think it's divisive. As a matter of fact, I've actually seen it be the opposite, at bringing people together on topics, and hopefully in the end bringing two very different opinions together in a community in a community setting. And we're really focusing on some very fundamental civics and social topics in governance and transparency. And I really enjoy discussing the fundamentals here. It's really something exciting as somebody that's very new in public government. And a lesson to be learned is that we sit down at this table, and I really didn't know Smith or Stewart or Valerie, and definitely didn't know them well enough to refer to them by their first name, and now I do. And they operate their own local government, and sometimes we don't even discuss how their government works in relation to our government, and now we do. We talk about it a lot. And I think we need to learn the lesson that we've kind of bridged a gap, we bridged a barrier that we didn't mean to bridge, is that discussing how our very similar and very different local governments work, and how they do things well in one regard and don't do things well in another regard, and how do you do it, and really sharing, they shouldn't be secrets, but sharing very public and different opinions of how local government should work. In front of Stewart is keys to the fuel depot at the town of Booth Bay. The town of Booth Bay operates a fuel depot, which we provide for very little benefit to the town of Booth Bay. We get inexpensive fuel, but we have a purchase arrangement with the CSD, the Refuse District, the town of Southport, and now, very new, the town of Edgecombe. Edgecombe is now part of our fuel depot because just in conversation, we've decided that makes sense. And then also we've had discussions in theory about other services. And I think that's great. And I think that's something that we should continue well beyond task force, as breaking down those barriers of the town to talk about, this is how our local government works, this is the things that we do well, this is the things we don't do well, what do you do, how do we do those? Really, once again, fundamental civics and social lessons.
And after it's all over, we can have an annual reunion.
Absolutely.
A potluck supper.
Oh.
I'm all right. I hope all you folks walk out of here tonight with a little bit more spring in your step.
Yes. Yes.
Realizing that we have had a huge victory, and you're all a huge part of it, and that we're going to keep moving this thing forward. We're not slowing down. We're not giving up in any level or form. And go home and get ready for the holidays. We'll see you.
All in favor?
Yoma.
Thank you all for coming out.